Hello, this video is published on November 25th. In 2023, that's after Thanksgiving, but there's still one Sunday left in the month. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I like how low-key it is compared to Christmas, and also how the entire holiday is designed to encourage us to think outside of ourselves. Even more than Christmas, I think Thanksgiving is a time that calls us to think about others. If we have things in our lives to be thankful for, that seems to me to naturally lead into thinking about how to make sure people who are lacking have those things. To me, Thanksgiving is a time to reorient ourselves, to remind ourselves of what God has blessed us with, and also to remember that as Christians, God calls us to care for the vulnerable and to protect those who are in need. As I'm thinking about all of this, I'm thinking about the church services I've been in around Thanksgiving. Honestly, in my experience, very little attention is given to Thanksgiving. Maybe on one Sunday closest to the holiday, there's been a sermon around being thankful or some kind of mention of the holiday, but I don't remember having experienced a full service that focused on the attitude of Thanksgiving or what that means for our actions as Christians. I also haven't experienced a church service that emphasized Thanksgiving as a celebratory holiday. So I was thinking about what that would look like, what it would look like to have a celebratory Thanksgiving church service. And then I thought that whatever happened, you would need to be careful to avoid arrogance. It's one thing to be grateful for what God has provided and to freely and enthusiastically enjoy what you've been given. I think that's good. If God gave us something, we shouldn't hesitate to enjoy it and thank Him for it. I might even suggest that enjoying something while acknowledging God as the provider is a form of thanksgiving and potentially even a form of worship. Maybe worship. Maybe. At the same time, I think we need to be careful not to move from gratitude and enjoyment into entitlement. If we start to think that God owes us good things because we've committed to following Christ, I think we need to think about that. Why do we think that God, the Creator who gives us life, owes us something? Why do we think that because we follow Christ, we deserve good things? So I think attitudes of Thanksgiving need to be taught about throughout the year, not just in the Thanksgiving holiday season. When it comes time to celebrate in the Thanksgiving holiday season, I think we should do so with joyful abandon, enjoy what God has given us, and also make sure that our enjoyment is with a heart right before God, that we keep who God is and who we, as a human, are in relation to God in a right perspective. Another thing to consider when planning a Thanksgiving church service is people who are in a time of sorrow. It's true that not every church service will minister to every person. But I think that we can make an effort to not ignore someone's grief just because it's challenging to meet their need in a celebratory event. I have a few thoughts about how we could use songs to celebrate with Thanksgiving while also reminding ourselves that God doesn't owe us and while joining with those who grieve. First, I would pick songs with themes of God's character. I would give a special preference to songs that emphasize characteristics that humans don't have. Humans don't give life, God does. Humans don't see the beginning and the end, God does, and so on. I would also make sure that the songs focus on God, not what the singer feels about God. That is, make sure the song focuses on God, not on the human. If you like the Acts model of prayer, this is the adore part. Next, I would choose songs of lament. You might have to really dig to find lament songs. In my experience with contemporary Christian music, most songs immediately jump to, "It's not that bad because God is in control," or "Grief here isn't worth acknowledging because we're all going to heaven," types of themes. When I think of a lament song, I'm looking for one that has similar honesty to imprecatory psalms. I'm looking for songs that say, "This isn't good, God, and I don't like it. It's awful, and it's taken over my life with distress and grief. I can't fix it, but you can. Whatever happens, God, I choose to believe that you'll take care of me. I choose to believe that you'll bring justice and comfort, and that because of your work, I will experience joy again." If you can find lament songs like this, I suggest including a couple in your Thanksgiving song set. Also, please leave their titles in the comments. I'm always on the lookout for good lament songs. This time of lament, I would put under the confession part of the Acts model of prayer. But even if you don't like the Acts model, including songs of grief that turn our focus to God without dismissing the sorrow can help us remember that even as we celebrate, our neighbor may be in pain. At this point in the song service, it could go 3 ways. You could sing songs of thanksgiving. You could sing songs of supplication, songs that ask God to act in certain ways. Or you could pause the singing and have a time of communal prayer where specific things are prayed for. If you've privately spoken to people beforehand and gotten their permission, you could pause the singing and specifically pray for those in grief or in need. Maybe there's something in the news that, as a church, you can pray over. Maybe this is a time where church leaders give prayers of repentance on behalf of the church for specific things the church as a body has done that are now recognized as going against God's plan for humanity. However you decide to use this time, after this communal prayer time, you could start the song service again, but with songs of thanksgiving. Coming off of prayers like I suggested, it might be good to have the first song or two focus on God's willingness to forgive or God's care for those who grieve or are in need. Once the focus has been set on God, you could transition to more human-oriented, "I'm thankful for" type songs. As you move towards the close of the song service, the songs could become more and more joyful and celebratory. After these songs of thanksgiving, you could have a time for people to share what they are thankful for. I know this can sometimes end up feeling performative with someone standing up to give thanks for every minute thing. Or on the other hand, only the big miraculous stories being told. Even so, there's potentially benefit from people publicly thanking God, giving their testimony, if you will. To summarize, one plan for a Thanksgiving song service is to start with songs focusing on who God is. Move to songs of lament or maybe confession. Have a time in song or word of confession or supplication, asking God to act on your behalf. Then have songs refocusing on who God is, and finish with songs for Thanksgiving. That's all I have to say for now. On another note, I do have a Thanksgiving song playlist on my channel, assuming YouTube doesn't take it down. Maybe check that out for inspiration. That's all for this video. Bye. Remember, transcripts can be found on my website. The link is in the channel info. Also, if you've watched this far, please subscribe. I'd like to publish a book that goes into more detail and looks at full songs, but agents for nonfiction Christian books won't accept submissions unless the author has a large social media following. So, please help me and subscribe. Thanks!